Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about leadership. And I feel like leadership is such a vanilla word that it doesn't get enough attention from our community. But what we do see is people talking a lot about the symptoms that come from not embracing leadership as the CEO of your mobile bar. And so I want to talk about that today because it's possible that some of our listeners are also struggling with some of these symptoms and they don't necessarily know where they're stemming from, and having it reflected back to them might be super helpful. You and I both come up in the world through leadership development. So this is a language that you and I speak very intimately. We love playing in this space. And I think because we're so familiar with it, we don't call it out very often because it's just interwoven with everything. And anybody who's been around knows that we utilize a system of 6 pillars in order to help people build business, which includes marketing, sales, operations, client experience, money, and mindset/leadership. So it's core, literally in our diagram. It's right there in the middle. It's core to everything we do, but because it's so core, it's kind of integrated to everything. And it might get lost to some people who don't know what to look for. Not to mention, we've received a couple of different applications recently from people that were very specifically saying, I would like to scale my mobile bar, but I don't have a team. I don't know how to build a team. I don't know how to manage a team. And I think that's a pretty common story in the mobile bar space. I think that oftentimes people start their mobile bar because it's something they can do themselves. And they get by with just like contractors for a while. So they don't really feel like they need to do a whole lot of leading, setting expectations, holding accountable, because if they show up and they're not great, they just don't get another shift. That's great for a little while, but it's certainly not going to build a thriving, secure, stable business that will be around 5 to 10 years from now.
There's a few things that are coming up for me as I hear you talking. The first one is that if you want to scale your business, you must develop your leadership skills. Period. There is no way around that. The second thing is that part of leadership is honoring someone else's sovereignty. And you can only truly do that if you're honoring your own sovereignty. And I think we might touch on that in this podcast later on down the road. But I think that even if we don't touch on it, I have to drop that gem there because that's another thing that you just absolutely cannot get around when it comes to leadership. And the third thing is that if you've heard us talk about here or on Crowns and Chaos, the evolution of the entrepreneur, what we know is that in the very first rung of making money, you're using the locked box of time and body in exchange for money. The reason it's a locked box is because you only have so much time and you only have so much physical capacity. When you enter the realm of leadership, you move into the next rung of making money. At this point, you're using your mind and your communication skills in order to expand that box. And so right now, when you're looking at your business, you're saying, I can only do so many events in a month because I have a full-time job. Or even if you're already full-time in your business, but you're like, I can't be in 2 places at once. That's that locked box. What's available to you is this next rung of conscious money making, which is the mind and the communication skills, where you can expand beyond your own physical body and you can expand beyond your own locked box of time.
That is so well put. And what we see where mobile bar owners, they've gone out there, they've done all the visibility work, they've got their little flywheel going, they're booking events. Now suddenly they're like, oh, I've had 2 inquiries on the same day. How do you determine which one of these to take? And my response is always take them both, and then we'll figure out how to execute both. There might be equipment restrictions, meaning they both want one of your rigs. And if it's a larger, more expensive rig, you'll have to let them know that it's been booked. But if it's a smaller rig, maybe it's a portable bar, build another. But it's not usually a resource constraint in the way that it's like, well, we don't have enough physical stuff to do this event, because that can always be fixed with just spending more money. It's usually, well, I don't have a team, or I don't know that I can trust my team to do this without me. I can't be in two places at once, or we don't have the systems in place, right? These are all of the things that come with leadership and preparing your business to take on more than you yourself can hold. And the biggest reason that we see reflected back to us is when people say to us, I have control issues. That's the thing. They're like, I can't imagine not being there. The second thing we see is, well, people expect me to be there. And that's a hurdle that is super easy to get over if you just stop promising that you'll be there, right? And don't let anybody assume that you're going to be there. It's your team. Your business is bigger than you. The other symptom that we see here is they're like, well, I'm fully booked for X month. Are you though? Right? What does fully booked really mean? It means that you've decided not to take on any more events for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you don't feel like your anxiety can handle any more events. You aren't sure that there are enough people on your team to execute all those events. Sometimes it's an equipment restriction, but not usually. Anytime I see any of these things, what I see is you're keeping your business small by keeping yourself small, because you yourself can handle more if you have support. If you have support of people that you trust, then your business can handle more. But people want to grow their business and they think that means more sales. But almost always it means that they themselves have to build the skills, the systems necessary to accommodate everything that comes with being a bigger business. And it's an infrastructure. Some of it's like SOPs, processes, hiring standards, an employer handbook, leave policies, that's infrastructure. But then the personal infrastructure of being a leader. And that usually looks like learning to build trust. If you're a control freak, you have trust issues, and you have trust issues because in the past you tried and did a thing, it didn't work. And you, instead of working with anything else, you said, I'll just do it myself. When that was an opportunity to work on communication, expectation setting, holding people accountable, having awkward conversations, admitting you're wrong potentially, learning how to break down what's in your mind into words so that you can share that with other people and so that you're aligned on the same page. All of this is where, when we see people around 3 to 5 years and they're hopping in because they want to grow their business and they think they're missing some like operational thing, some visibility secret. And really what we find is what they're missing is the fact that they have to put their leadership underwear, their leadership panties on, and build those skill sets before we build any others.
Another thing that we hear often with new leaders is, I'm trying to be less of a friend and more of a boss. And I would just offer the reflection that neither of those are leadership. Leadership is, to your point, a process of building trust. The skill set of leadership lives in the vein of relationships. When you can create stable relationships with solid boundaries, with trust, with inspiration, with integrity, people will naturally want to follow you. So when we hear people saying, I need to be less of a friend and more of a boss, what I'm hearing is that they're trying to make the flip from victim to bully victim. And those words might sound harsh, but if you've ever worked with me, you understand like how shadows play in everything that we do. The unconscious victim is a people pleaser. They're trying to be everybody's bestie. They don't want to upset anybody. And everything that happens is like somebody else's fault or something else's fault. And so they can blame the friendship rather than looking and taking accountability. The boss lives on the bully victim side of that spectrum, where we're going to lay down the law. We're going to enforce our boundaries. We're going to start drawing rigid lines in the sand. You don't show up at 10 a.m. straight to jail, right? And you want to play in this beautiful, happy medium space where you're inspiring other people to be self led. Beautiful leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders, they multiply. And that multiplication looks like being so in integrity, so in alignment with yourself, so self led that other people are like, that's possible for me too. I want to be in this person's space so that I too can learn the art of being self led. And then you don't have to lay down the law or send people straight to jail. There's no like, you get write ups and corrective actions. Potentially those play a part in it. But guys, I've written up a lot of people in my day. I've done corrective actions, I've fired, I can't even count. And every time, oh, almost every time, that corrective action was a positive conversation about how I could support someone in being their best self, in them being fully expressed and fully respected. Every time I fired someone, they were like, oh my God, thank you so much for sending me on this positive direction that I had no idea that my life could go on. And it was a process of me being in integrity and being self-led, so they felt supported regardless of whether I was having a corrective conversation or I was sending them straight to jail. This is available for anyone who's listening. Being self-led is how you create phenomenal relationships. And the process of becoming a good leader doesn't just happen in segmentation. You're not just a good leader at work. The work of being a good leader starts way before you show up on site. It starts way before you start hiring people. The process of being a good leader starts in your relationships, and you have tons of those now. You can be a good leader in actual friendships that you have. Are you being a good friend? Because good friends are good leaders.
Two things that came up while you were talking there. And the first is that every once in a while, we'll hear somebody who is really in their head about staff members potentially going out and starting their own mobile bar company, which happened to me twice. And they were some of my first hires. And I will always tell them that is the greatest compliment as a leader. And if you are able to rise someone to the point where they are capable and confident in their own abilities to go out in the world and work for themselves, then give yourself a pat on the back, because that's the whole point of leadership. Now, would you like them to stay and do that for you? Obviously, right? You've spent time and energy and money training that person up, but they have their own, that's the sovereignty piece, right? They have their own free will. And so if they decided that they want to go and do their own thing, that is the greatest compliment. And it shouldn't keep you from hiring, training, pouring your wealth of knowledge into these people. Because if they then do start their own mobile bar and they become more successful than you, then the student has become the teacher. I love it when I have competition in my local area, even in the mobile bar space. I love it when people get into the space and say, I'm going to start coaching you. I'm going to start teaching you, even if they've been through my programming, because that means that my programming was successful. It helped them grow. It helped them become more confident and build more clarity around what they wanted to do with the world. And then they're going to give that medicine to other people who are also going to become more confident, get more clarity, and become more successful. And what greater gift is there to give to the world? So that was the first thing I wanted to point out, is that if you're one of those people that are sitting there being really afraid to hire somebody because that somebody could then take what you do and do it somewhere else, let me tell you, there are no state secrets in what we do. I was coaching and giving all of my playbooks to people in my immediate market, even when I still owned my mobile bar. I had other mobile bars that wouldn't let my bartenders work for them if they were also working for me, because they were afraid that they would share secrets. What secrets? And then the second thing is that oftentimes people avoid the work of becoming a good leader because it requires failure. It requires saying I'm wrong. It requires saying the wrong thing sometimes to learn how to say the right things. It requires humility. It requires feeling like shit sometimes. It requires being like, oh, you know what? My way wasn't actually the right way there. And I'm sorry I jumped to conclusions or whatever, right? And there has to be a certain level of personal development, growth, in order to be willing to fail, knowing that that's the process to becoming a better leader. I think you and I had the benefit of getting into leadership positions really early on in life and failing a lot really early in life. And I share the story that my very first leadership position, they really thought I was a bitch. They just did, because the only tool in my tool belt was authority. And you do it because I say so, do it because that's the rule, do it because I'm telling you to and I'm the boss, right? And like, that's not leadership. It was unsuccessful. I didn't make a whole lot of friends. I had a hard time getting people to do the things that I wanted them to do or I needed them to do in order to move the ball forward. That really unlocked a journey of leadership development for me. It included lots of opportunity to learn how to communicate better with more clarity, lots of saying, I'm sorry, I made you feel that way because that wasn't kind in the way I delivered that information. It really was a lot of, oops, that's my bad. I wasn't clear enough in the directions. I missed or omitted that from what it is that I explained to you. Lots of that. And it doesn't feel good to be in that process, but it's worth it.
A lot of humility and grace born from humility. You become confident in leadership. People think that confidence is like a nice Gucci bag. Confidence is what car you drive. Confidence is how calm you are under pressure. Confidence is being able to admit that you were wrong over and over again without compromising your integrity. A lot of people think that admitting that you're wrong, and you can look to your marital, if you guys have a spouse, like an intimate partner, how often do you say, "Oh, I was wrong for that?" Right? You might say, "I'm sorry," and it's sarcastic in passing, but how often do you say, "I was wrong for that. How can I do better? Let's compromise. Let's work together to create something new and beautiful from the fertile soil of my wrongness." The other thing that came up as you were talking was around people not wanting to hire someone because they might share their secrets or they might go on and start their own mobile bar. And this, again, first rule of leadership, there are at least 5 first rules of leadership, is that you are here to create more leaders. And to your point, that's a wonderful compliment when someone goes on. The shadow reflection I would offer, the subconscious reflection I would offer of what's happening there is that you're actually really insecure in your business. If you're afraid that other people are going to copy your name, they're going to steal your ideas, they're going to start their own mobile bar, you're insecure in what you've created. And so the process of building security can't be done through harboring everything in a safe. The process of security comes from sharing what you have to offer with the world and knowing that it is good, knowing that it is blessed, knowing that it will go forth and multiply. We don't want to guard our own assets with our life because all that's doing is sending a message out to the world, including to your prospects, that you're insecure in what you offer. And so instead of being worried that someone might take your ideas, start looking at your own insecurity there and doing the work of building self security so that you can allow your impact to multiply.
We've talked a lot about what leadership looks like, what it is, and how the symptoms of a lack of leadership can present within a business. Let's talk about what steps people can take once they have identified the fact that, yes, I want to grow my business. Yes, I recognize that requires me to develop better leadership skills, to acquire better leadership tools in my tool belt. Where do they go from there?
The first place is mentorship in whatever capacity that looks like. We have seats available in the accelerator right now, and that container is so malleable that we can craft it around the needs of the student. And so if you need support with leadership, the accelerator is a great place to do that. What I will say about mentorship is that there are no swipe files for leadership. There are no templates. There are no spreadsheets. I currently coach someone in leadership that wants to know what to say. Just tell me what to say. And the hardest thing I have to reflect back to people is that I can't tell you what to say or I do you a disservice. I'm not a good leader if I just tell you what to think. And that the process of leadership for her, and this was not something that she really wanted to hear, is that you have to go fail. You can either fail on your own and learn through the hellfires, or you can fail with support. I prefer to fail with support. I know you prefer to fail with support. So if you are looking to the next steps of how do I become a better leader, those are your 2 options. Go fail. That's the only option. Will you fail with support or will you fail on your own?
A couple of my most recent favorite conversations with group coaching clients are when they come back after a situation. One, for example, was one of my bartenders was drinking on the job. And she was like, we always kind of taste the cocktails in the beginning, and that's always okay. But I reached for my glass halfway through the event, accidentally got her glass, and it was straight alcohol. And she handled it, and then she brought it to me. And the reason I love it in that sequence is because, much what you were just saying, is that we get to break down what was said, how it was said, what was done, how it was done, what the results of it were, what would we have wanted the results to look like, where were you giving away your power card. In this example, she's like, I told her, like, our insurance won't cover us. I was like, hold up, we're not giving away our power card to the insurance company. Is it against your policy to drink on the job? Yes. Okay. Then that's the boundary that we're holding. We're not saying the big bad insurance guy is going to come and shut us down, because that's giving your power card away. And we want them to respect you and your boundaries and your company. And so you have set the standard of no drinking on the job. They violated your policy. Right. And so we can have a conversation around where, as leaders, they were undermining themselves, whereas leaders, they were opening themselves up for a lack of clarity, or they were not standing in their power. And so having that support of working with someone while they're in active leadership is so, so valuable. And sometimes we'll get people that come in and say things like, I have to have a conversation with this person about this thing, and I'm really nervous about it. I don't know how to do it. And then we can kind of give guidance on the fact that, like, well, one, don't ever do it angry, right? Make sure everyone's at an emotionally regulated state. Why? Because when you have conversations from a place of emotional dysregulation, you're actually disconnected from the logic part of your brain. That's when you start saying, you made me feel, or whatever, right? And maybe you're cruel, or you said something you didn't really want to say. You jump to a conclusion. And that's because the part of your brain that would logically assess the situation isn't communicating, right? So we always want to make sure that conversations are had when you, the leader, are emotionally regulated. Ideally, both people would be emotionally regulated. But sometimes that's not the case, because when you have a conversation with someone who's not used to being held accountable from a place of equal respect, they get defensive. And as soon as they get defensive, off goes the logic part of their brain. And so you can't control the other party in the conversation, but you absolutely control yourself. We can have conversations in the moment with people, preparing them to go into these conversations, asking them to, like, hey, think about this when you go in there, maybe even given a different perspective, where they're like, I'm going in and I'm talking to them about this thing. And we can be like, okay, what was the expectation that you set? Oh, so there wasn't really a whole lot of clarity around there. And so by the time they do go into those conversations, they're in a more balanced state in order to have those conversations from a place of real stability. So there's a ton of value. We love having those leadership conversations. We have multiple people within the accelerator currently that regularly bring us those situations, because they are intentionally using that container to improve their leadership capacity and their leadership capabilities. And the results are astounding, because now suddenly they're doing more events, many of them on the same day. They're taking bigger events that they would have been terrified to do before, because they know that they have a better team and they have more trust with their team. Sometimes these coaching containers aren't so much about action items that are predictable and, like, this is what you need to be doing when you need to be doing them, but it's more about being available for when things come up, to have someone help work you through it, talk you through it, hold the higher version of you in front of you saying, we know you are capable of doing this. Absolutely, you can take that crazy large event. Why are you afraid? What are you scared of? And then we can break those down into actual tangible things that we can look at and work with, because entrepreneurship, and especially leadership, can be really lonely and scary without someone in the room believing in you, cheering you on, providing context, and helping you be the best version of yourself.
You know, another thing that comes up as you're talking about this is the people we've supported who say that there's just not good help. It's impossible to find good people anymore. If you're a shitty leader, just say that, bro. You know, what I mean? Radical self-honesty is a really great place to start, because everybody's doing the very best that they can with what they have available to them. Potentially, you're the first opportunity that they have to have new tools, to have new skills, to have new examples set in front of them. so that they can do better. And so if you're listening to this, you're like, this would be great, but I can't find good people to begin with. That's a you thing. You're giving away your power card. Great people exist. Great people want to do good work. Great people want to be passionate. They want to be filled with purpose. They want to help other people create something amazing. And if you don't have that belief system and you're giving it away and saying it must be that good people don't exist, bring it back home. It's you. You can be a better leader first by accepting that there are great people out there that want to do great work with you. Second, by saying, how can I make myself the best version to inspire other people to be the best version of them?
That's the gold. That's the entire gospel. Ultimately, what I perceive to be the best goal for all entrepreneurs, anybody who owns any business, should be working to become the very best leader that they can, because that's where results start to multiply. That's where the work that you do on your business and on yourself to be a good leader flow into all other areas of your life. You find that you have better personal relationships. When you become a better leader, you find that you have better family relationships. You're no longer tolerating people in your life that are overly critical, not very supportive. And it's not like that's the goal. It just happens. Your life gets sweeter and richer, more meaningful, and you feel more confident and, dare I say, powerful when you move through the world from a place of leadership, because you've learned to lead yourself, you've learned to lead others, and people are excited to follow. And then they're receiving your medicine and putting it back out into the world at the same time. So our goal is for everybody within all of our programmings to become spectacular leaders. And sometimes that requires a little bit more support from the outside world than just working within your business. So if you see yourself reflected in what we're talking about today and you'd like more support in becoming a better leader and becoming more successful in your business as a result, then we invite you to apply to the accelerator so that we can see if you're a good fit and work together on empowering you to be the very best leader that you can be.
Another awesome episode. Thanks again, Sarah, for having me on. I will drop the link to the application page for the accelerator into the show notes.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.